Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of my own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any other person or group of people. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of any group of people, person, or fanbase or its members. This video and the presentation of material therein do not imply the expression of any opinion other than mine.
Hello and welcome to this video. Today's video is going to be the finish up to Season 1, Episode 5, Priesthood 1 of the Rabbits Podcast. Before we get any further, I need to point out that Southeast Texas is currently on fire right now. And in the last week, I've had the prepare for an evacuation order. The local volunteer fire department has actually done a very, very outstanding job. They, the forest fires, wildfires that have been close to where I'm at, they've come personally and knocked on the door and said, hey, you may have to evac, so get your stuff ready to go and have it ready, because the next time we come past, it's going to be either A, to tell you to stand down, or B, get out of Dodge. So that is kind of where we're at right now. They're still trying to contain about an 8.5 mile forest fire about 5-6 miles north of me. So that's that. I tell you this just simply to let you know that videos may be coming out staggered. They may be late. I am trying to figure out if I can figure out how to do all this on my laptop. Everything I do, these videos I do now, I do on my desktop. So I got to figure out, get all the stuff downloaded to my laptop in case we do have to bug out. So I may or may not be able to get videos up on time. It all depends on when we get some rain. Any kind of rain. Just rain. We need wet. We haven't had any of that since about the first week of June. So I also need to give a shout out to the people that watch these videos. Thank you very much. The people that have subscribed, thank you very much. In the last 2.5 months, I've went from 7 subscribers to 20 subscribers, and I thank all of you for subscribing. I thank all of you for watching. So without further ado, let's get into this thing.
It was a crazy story, but I had no idea what it had to do with rabbits. Jones had his theories.
Doc Hornet.
Okay, I'll bite. What about Doc Hornet?
It's an anagram
For what?
for the condor.
The condor.
You don't recognize the name?
From the circle. The condor won the second iteration of rabbits, the game known as 2.
This is kind of folding in stuff that happened previous to this podcast, previous to this particular storyline, which is kind of cool.
Very good. You're a quick study.
Am I? I gotta say, it doesn't feel like things are happening all that quickly.
There's a lot of information to parse and wade through. You're doing very well. Honestly.
Thanks. Okay, why did I have to read that story if the writer's name is the big clue?
I needed to see if something in the text elicited a response.
It did. I was grossed out and scared. Was that the response you were looking for?
I'm not sure.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Me and my wife have had similar conversations, usually with me introducing something weird, strange, and her having that pretty much the same reaction. It's kind of interesting, the parallels to real life that can be drawn from fictitious stories. It's amazing.
Back to Doc Hornet, the Condor.
What about him?
This story is more than just background on rabbits. It's a clue to a station.
A station?
A kind of repository or storehouse for clues.
How do you figure?
There's a station known as Arcadia. It's located deep in the forest, someplace in Alaska.
That sounds far.
It's pretty far.
Which, seeing as how these stories take place in the Seattle, Washington general area, to say something in Alaska is far away from Seattle is saying something.
Are you suggesting I should fly to Alaska?
I'm definitely not suggesting anything of the kind.
What would you do?
I'll send you what I have in Arcadia, as it relates to rabbits.
Jones?
Yes?
Are you playing the game?
Check your email.
A very, very obvious non-answer.
Jones sent me some information about Arcadia. It was a whole lot of nothing, as far as I could tell. Just some speculation about where the place was located. Most believed it was in Alaska. But there was disagreement on whether it was situated on an ancient native burial site or a UFO landing area. I was seriously considering flying up north, but I needed to get a better sense of where exactly this Garden of Arcadia was located. It didn't matter if it was an ancient native burial site or a UFO landing area. I needed something a bit more specific, like map coordinates.
And having map coordinates is a good thing, especially for something that is not located, that you can easily just plug into your GPS or look up on a map. So, you know.
I was just about to dive into some deep web research on Arcadia when Jones called again.
Priesthood 1.
Wow. Where'd you hear that name?
Is it yours?
Yes. Where did you find it?
I searched your name.
That's it?
That's it.
Just now.
A while ago. I just received some advanced results.
I didn't write it under my name. I called myself Parker Carlson.
Sorry. I searched all your names.
Of course.
As somebody in Jones's position, I don't really want to spoil exactly what Jones is or doing, but his position, part of why he's doing things, will come out later. But I can imagine that Carly is kind of taken aback at the minimum about this.
You're a comic artist?
I used to draw a little.
This is pretty advanced stuff.
If by advanced you mean infantile punk rock teenage angst, V for Vendetta, Watchmen ripoff bullshit?
That's not what I meant.
No?
No. The artwork is fantastic.
I like the reference to V for Vendetta, which is a very good comic and a very good movie. Watchmen, which is probably one of my all-time favorite comic series. And the movie, not so much. Though the HBO miniseries was pretty good. So.
Isn't that what people normally say about a shitty movie? The cinematography was fantastic.
You're incredibly talented, with both words and pictures.
Thanks, Jones. You're making me blush.
It kind of reminds me of Rush's 2112. You know, with the beauty of art versus the high-tech church, although I don't remember Rush having evil sentient AI at the center of things.
No, I don't suppose they did.
Yeah, Rush was kind of pre-AI, though it is a really good album.
It's really good. I was only able to track down 29 pages. Is there more?
That's pretty much it. I have a couple of roughly sketched out panels, but I stopped working on it when I started college.
That's too bad. I'd love to see how it ends. The imagery, it really is great. I'm impressed.
Thanks. Again.
Of course.
Did you find anything else?
I'm sorry, was I intrusive? I was intrusive.
It's okay.
But it's not.
So, Jones found a comic I'd created during my senior year of high school. I was obsessed with comics. Still am, actually. Priesthood 1 was a story about a rebellion against a technocracy, an evil empire. Our hero, an intrepid young woman named Geo, discovered the power of art and used it to overthrow the bad guys. Come to think of it, it did sound a lot like that Rush album. Rush was my brother's favorite band.
Yeah, the 2112 Rush album, if you've never listened to it, you're missing out on a really good story, album, music. But you have to listen to the tracks in order and actually listen to the lyrics. From what I understand, the 2112 album was inspired Rush. The inspiration that they had was from Ayn Rand's short story novelette, and I just forgot the name of it. It's not We the Living. We the Living is a story about Russian. It's not Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged. I may have to look that up and get back with you. But it was Ayn Rand's work that inspired that album.
Can't imagine where Jones managed to find Priesthood 1. I took a few copies to my local comic store in the summer between high school and college. And I did scan it at some point for inclusion in an anthology in Germany. There was a MySpace page somewhere, I think, featuring a few local comic artists. I looked for that page a few years ago, but I couldn't find it. Talking about Priesthood 1 reminded me just how important comics had been in my life. The worlds of Alan Moore, Warren Ellis, and Neil Gaiman pulled me through some really rough times.
And the fact that she mentions, she mentions Wyatt Ellis, who did a wonderful comic series called Transmetropolitan. The others are just, if you're into comics, the others are just kind of self-explanatory. I am kind of interested why Grant Morrison, unless there's I don't remember a Grant Morrison reference anywhere in the series, but Grant Morrison also did a lot of his work. If you look at it at a philosophical level, any comics, the whole thing, her talking about the comics being important to you. And to this day, I read comics. A lot of the stories have evolved. I think it's because when I got into comics in the mid 80s, and a lot of the writers and stuff were just out of college, or fairly established younger writers like Frank Miller and the artists, the awesome amount of artists. I don't have time to just list all the fantastic artists and the art. And they intentionally used words when you're a 15, 16-year-old kid that you immediately grab a dictionary and look up. So yes, in a lot of ways, the comics that I grew up on were very educational, very important, and allowed you to think outside the box or normality. And I still think well-written comics to this day are important for people.
I was halfway through rereading a Swamp Thing collection, trying to get my mind off things, when I got a call from Yumiko's brother.
I love Swamp Thing, by the way. And I like John Constantine and Swamp Thing interplay. But the shout out to Swamp Thing in this podcast is kind of cool too.
Adam. He was in Japan, trying to convince his mother to come home, and asked if I could go to Yumiko's gym and pick something up. Apparently, the gym had been sold. It was too bad. It was a really cool old boxing gym. I'd been there once before. Yumiko had a trainer named Maury Albert, who was merciless. I was sore for a week. Once was enough for me. Miko went every second day. Hi, are you Maury?
That's right.
I'm Carly. I'm here to pick up Yumiko's things.
And pay the balance?
I'm sorry?
The balance owing, $31 for the locker.
Oh, okay.
I don't have any change.
It's fine.
And I love the boxing gym background noises that are going on.
This is it.
Thanks.
Any word from Yumiko?
No, she's still missing.
Do they know what happened?
As far as we know, she just disappeared.
The police?
Nothing yet.
That's too bad. She was a great kid.
You mean she is a great kid?
Right. Yes. Yeah, she is.
Right. Okay, well, thanks for this.
Sure, no problem.
I opened the box of Yumiko's stuff as soon as I got back into my car. There was a skipping rope, some gloves, tape, and a pair of some kind of soft shoes. There was also a shower kit with shampoo, deodorant, razors, and a worn-out brown accordion file that contained an old logic board. Yeah, one of these things was not like the others.
And it kind of stands out. When I was in my 20s, I played with like rudimentary Radio Shack type logic boards, but I never played with any of the really cool stuff, the stuff that cost more money than I had at the time. So, and with all the workout equipment a logic board like that, yeah, it's kind of stands out.
It was a logic board from a video game. It was labeled Stargate by Williams. Stargate was a sequel to their wildly popular game called Defender. In fact, Stargate's full title is Defender Stargate. We always just called it Stargate.
And I pumped a lot of quarters into Stargate and Defender machines when I was age appropriate. Or actually when they were all over the arcades and in a lot of the convenience stores and stuff at the time. We had a 7-Eleven that usually had the not newest, but fairly new video games. They always had a couple of pinball machines. I preferred pinball over video games. Had a good friend of mine who did the video games. In fact, he pumped probably a small fortune into Space Ace, but you know, it is what it is.
It was one of my brother's favorite games. What was Yumiko doing with a logic board from an old arcade game in her locker? Well, it turns out she never actually received it. The logic board had been delivered to Yumiko, care of the gym, after she disappeared. I took the logic board to somebody I knew would be able to help me look into it. The magician popped the logic board into his Defender game cabinet and hooked it up. The first thing I noticed was that this version was actually titled Defender 2, and not Stargate. The second thing I noticed were the high scores. It was the circle, here called Immortals, which is the way Stargate refers to the holders of the high scores. Actually, Stargate refers to the all-time leading high scores as Immortals, and the daily high scores as Mortals. Here, the Immortals section was the circle, and the Mortals section was just a list of what appeared to be random scores and names. The magician thought this was very interesting. He pointed out that this version of the circle only included the names from 1 through 6. 7, which reportedly began around 1989, wasn't included. The last name on the list was Californiac, the reputed winner of 6. The first thing I did when the magician booted up the game was perform the Easter egg trick my brother taught me. You start the game, move the joystick down, and press the one-player start, reverse, and thrust. Then, press reverse, two-player start, and fire. Then move the joystick down and press one-player start, thrust, and fire. This coded sequence normally unlocks the game's secret credits screen. But in this case, it unlocked something else. Next time, we'll look into what I found when I performed my brother's Easter egg trick on that Defender 2 machine. Plus, we'll dig into what Jones sent me on Arcadia. But before I sign off, Jones was calling. He had a question about something we'd discussed earlier. What is it?
Priesthood 1.
What about it?
When did you create it?
Right around the end of my senior year of high school. Why?
Are you sitting down?
What does that have to do with anything?
It's an expression.
Like your news is going to be so shocking that I'll have to... Jones, it's not Yumiko. They didn't...
No, they didn't find it. No, it isn't anything like that.
Okay. Then what is it?
Priesthood 1.
You already said that.
It's an anagram.
An anagram? For what?
For the door is open.
Yeah, that when you do something like that and somebody finds an anagram, it's something that you think is totally unrelated. It's kind of interesting.
it's rabbits. I'm Carly Parker. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay safe.
Okay, so we've come to the end of Priesthood 1, and it's getting deeper. And if you want to sit down and take Priesthood 1 and rearrange the letters, and it does spell out "the door is open," which is the accepted catchphrase for a new iteration of Rabbit starting. So, until next week, or hopefully next week, I should say, unless we have to bug out due to forest fires, take care, be safe, and peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?